Hey everybody, how's it going? Dan Schinder here.
And Steven Schinder here.
No, you're there. I'm here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Hey everybody, how's it going? We're here to celebrate a birthday boy, right?
Yeah, happy heavenly birthday to Chris Squire,
Uh,
original Yes bassist, one of the founders, and such a huge legacy. It really goes without saying.
yeah, and we found some cool pictures. I mean, what pictures of Chris are not cool? But I just love that outfit. Just love that. That's a classic one. I never noticed this before, which is weird. I never noticed that that's a different, I think, like custom issue Rickenbacker. It's not his normal Rick, which is interesting. Um, and then, of course, there he is with his original Rick. If I remember right, it's like number 4 or 7 off the production line or something like that.
Hmm.
Don't remember, but we're going to share some really cool. There's a good one in front of his Rolls Royce or Bentley. I don't remember which it is, but we're going to share some thoughts with you. We'd like you to share yours as well. Go ahead and comment wherever you're watching this, whether it's on Drum Talk TV's Facebook or YouTube, or of course, Yesshift's Facebook or YouTube. There's a fun one. French for yes, of course, for those who don't know. So yeah, Steve, where do we begin?
Right. So for this episode, we wanted to mainly focus on Chris Squire's singing, like his vocal contributions, if you will, because we usually, in general, yes, fandom praises his bass playing, and they do praise his singing as well, but perhaps not on as much of an extent. And I kind of feel like it's maybe the sort of unsung aspect of
No pun
his
intended.
talents.
But it is overlooked. Not overlooked. It's just not talked about enough, I don't think, because what a great singer. I mean, a great harmonizer, great lead vocalist. Um, I there's so much to this topic. I don't know where to start, but I know you probably do.
Yeah. So first off, I'll pose this question, and um, I don't know if we want to answer it now or think about it and answer it later. But it was sort of a question that came to me, which is: are there any songs where you think Chris Squire could have sang lead if he wanted to, whether it be a section of the song or the whole song? And folks, this isn't like, oh, I really wish he had done that. Like
Instead of
when
so
when
and
he could
so.
have. Yeah, like it's nothing like that, and it's not like like a it's not like, oh, it's too bad this never happened type thing. Like, I'm not trying
Right.
to like make it depressing or anything. It's just kind of fun speculation. Like,
Yeah.
if he really wanted to, like, what could he have sung lead?
I have mine off the top of my head.
Okay.
And it's easy and it's kind of a gimme. It's kind of obvious. And his voice is already very prominent in this song in the harmonies, but I could hear him singing it by himself or with just Steve Howe still on harmonies and John maybe either switched to maybe not a different harmony, but lower in the mix, if you will, so that Chris is more out front. And it's the song that he almost put on Fish Out of Water, but it ended up being on Going for the One, and that's Parallels, which is one of my favorite Yes songs and one of my favorite songs that does feature his harmonies. So that one, I think now that I think about it, Going for the One as well would be interesting with Chris as the lead, I think. But what do you have any off the top of your head? You probably
Yeah.
you came up with the question. I had time to think about it.
Yeah, I think both of those choices came to me too, because
Really?
we sort of, I mean, I think it was pretty easy to just, like, off the top of my head, go to like some of the things where Chris Squire was the co-writer. Like, funny enough, like naturally he just fits for some of those songs. But going for the one, I believe the title track is Anderson written, but I could imagine Chris like singing that type of song because we have the Fish Out of Water album as a sort of template for that sort of thing. You know, with Hold Out Your Hand, it kind of feels like he has this energy that sort of attacks the listener in a good way. And I kind of get that type of vibe with Going for the One and Parallels, and even a few of the tracks on Tormato. Funny enough, like
Oh,
I could imagine him singing lead on "Don't Kill the Whale," "Release, Release," maybe even on the
yeah.
Wings of Freedom. Um,
Oh,
and
wow, the Silent Wings of Freedom. Let me just kind of imagine that for a moment.
yeah,
It would
can
be
you
so
imagine?
yeah, I know, right? It'd be so different in a way because John's voice is very ethereal in general, but in that song, it's very ethereal and goes with that music. You know, after that long intro and it kind of comes down, bum, 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 his voice really stands out. I could hear Chris doing that, but another one that came to me that would really make this song a well-rounded, complete Chris Squire feature would be Heart of the Sunrise.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, I think it'd have to be probably in a slightly lower register, even for Chris's voice. But that whole section, love comes to you and you follow, that's not exactly Chris's style of singing those sorts of melodies, but I'd love to hear
Yeah,
what that would have sounded like, you know?
yeah.
That would be really cool.
I'm like super attached to the way John sings that part really
Well, that's
high.
because
So
I sung it to you as a newborn for about the first year, rocking you in my arms. Some people know that, some people don't, but true story. I actually used to sing Steve to
yeah.
sleep when I got tired of his baby shit. Just kidding.
No, yeah, that's totally fair. Um, but yeah, a couple other ones that came to mind. I could kind of imagine Perpetual Change sung by Chris.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and funny enough, like the very first track on the debut album, Beyond and Before, you know, that I was thinking about this earlier, it really showcases like right away the Yes vocal harmonies. Like I think you have John, Chris, and maybe even Peter singing together on that. So it's like there's not a lead vocalist quite just yet. Once you listen to that first song, it becomes evident like throughout the rest of the album. But I believe that one
That's interesting.
was co-written by Chris and Mabel Greer's Toy Shop, and there's a version of that. So I could definitely that's another one right there.
Yeah, that's
Um,
neat. Are there any oh, there are some comments.
Yeah, and
We
I have like a couple other things that came to mind, but go ahead and read those.
Yeah, let's read a couple of these. So, Total Mass retained the Yes tribute band. I'm guessing this
Yeah,
might be Joe Cass that's working that
yeah,
right now.
they actually recently did a Chris Squire birthday
Yeah.
celebration playing Fragile and Close to the Edge albums.
Yep. They say so many amazing Chris Squire vocals. True. Bill Keel says Chris's vocals were great. I liked his solo on Fly From Here. Me too. I love that song. The Man You Always Wanted Me to Be. I love that song. And that song did not get a great review in our friend Kevin's book. But I love that song. I love that
No,
song.
it was Stephen Lamb, I think it
Oh, that
was.
was
Yeah.
Stephen Lamb's book. Okay, sorry, sorry.
Yeah, we
Uh,
know so many people write yes books.
yeah. Bella Lagrisi says, "Hi, Stephen Dan. Hi, Bella. Hope you're well." Also, from Total Mass Retained, on the topic of Chris singing lead, would love to have heard Yes do "It Can Happen" with Chris singing verses, but the final version is still great. Agreed.
Yeah.
Bella also says, "Happy birthday in heaven, Chris." I love the conspiracy stuff, especially The Unknown. That's a great track. And uh, let's see, to name a few from Total Mass Retain, Moment, Starship Trooper, Follow. Oh, that's right. Especially the live version. So much of Tales is co-lead. That's true. Especially like in brain farting here. Oh my god, in Ritual. Maybe I'll just
Oh
sing.
yeah.
You know, that whole section, that's a great call. There are definitely sections of Only John, of course, release, Lost and Wondering Maybe. How is Rhythm of Love, Information Leading to Confusion, Fly From Here. along the edge of this airfield. Yeah, there's some neat lyrics that would have worked really well with Chris. And Bella says half a word away is so good. Yeah, these are some great takes. What's more of yours, Steve?
Yeah, so one of these comments that we just read mentioned it can happen, and there's definitely that cinema demo version where it's Chris on lead, and it's such a different vibe, and
Yeah.
it kind of makes you wonder, like, if cinema had been a thing and John hadn't joined, would there have been maybe half Trevor sung songs and half Chris sung songs? Like, I really don't know. If it feels like Chris, you know, he definitely could have sung more lead vocals, but it feels like as far as Yessel is concerned, he felt comfortable in the role he was in, you know, playing bass and doing harmonies, and maybe I don't know if maybe memorizing the lyrics could have been a thing, but I don't know how much that matters when, like, sometimes John even flubs the lyrics once in a while, but we still like really enjoy the singing, you know?
Yeah. That's funny that you say that because I've seen him do that in person twice.
Yeah.
And it
Another
was
one that,
Chris who whispered in his ear what the lyrics should be,
oh
strangely enough.
yeah, for Gates, yeah.
Gates, yeah, that was hilarious at the Hollywood Bowl. That happened at least the time I saw it. Who knows how many other times it happened. Now, how I'm going to ask a tough question. Okay, this is
Okay.
like saying, "What's your favorite Yes song?" This is a tough question. What are some of your favorites? And this is to the audience as well. What are some of your favorites that he harmonizes on? Doesn't sing lead in any passage, but is a harmony on. A couple of mine are in some of the Tales stuff, and that's hard to narrow
Oh
down.
yeah,
But I
for
go
me
with,
too.
yeah, in Ritual, but also um, especially stands out the live version from the Richfield Coliseum show 1978 in the round, the first Tormato leg, the opening track of Siberian Khatru. You really hear Chris's vocals there, and also in Future Times and Rejoice. I just love those harmonies, and the way that whole concert, you know, starts out with the first four songs is just great. But those are some of mine. But there's also some really good harmonies from um, here he goes again, having a stroke or something. What's
Is it Open Your Eyes?
Open Your Eyes, yes, but also on the symphonic album that Can You Imagine?
Magnification.
Thank you. Yeah, this.
Yeah.
But what are some of yours that you feel are
Yeah.
very exemplifying of his harmonies?
Yeah, I think Close to the Edge is kind of
Oh,
the
yeah.
go-to, like, pinnacle example of some of those, like, iconic Yes vocal harmonies. So there's definitely that.
Yeah.
Um Parallels, like we said, is very prominent.
If anyone
But
says
yeah,
all
there are,
good
like, lots
people,
of
I'm
great
cutting the live stream.
choices.
I'm
Um,
I gotta
yeah,
explain that. So, folks, all good people for me is like the it's a small world song for me in a way. Like it not only gets stuck in my head, I know how iconic it is. I'm not an idiot. Well, maybe I am, but I know how iconic it is. It's reminiscent, like uh John Lennon's song, you know, Imagine. It's almost that iconic of the times. But in the last 20 years of Yes's playing, I think it could be left out of the set and replaced with something I'm sure just about anyone could come up with. Oh, I would have loved to hear this. Okay, take that one out. But that's just me. I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying it's if there's one song that's overplayed, and I know some people feel that way about Roundabout, which I don't. So there you go.
yeah, and there are harmonies on Roundabout as well, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
a couple other songs that came to mind as far as, like, where Chris could have sung lead if he wanted to. I could sort of, um, like, in my head, like, see Mind Drive with Chris singing the, "Don't forget to seek out the world," you know, that whole section,
Yeah.
and then alternate to John when it goes to the "They will bring you rain." they'll move the sky. Nice contrast there.
Oh, I gotta jump in. Here's a couple really good ones from Joel Smitches. Look at that
I'm scrolling. Oh yeah,
on the screen. And then
yeah,
this one.
Machine Messiah and Into the Lens and
Into Wondrous
Wondrous
Stories. Yeah, we
Stories.
didn't think of
Yeah,
that either. That's like me and Enja's song, you know.
yeah. I could he sings part of Onward, and that's one of his songs. He very well could have sang
Oh, yeah, I
Abel's song.
love his vocals in that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that version that's on keys is just the best version of that song. In a way, it's quite different from the original, and I think much better than the original. I like the original, but there's something about the live version I just feel is so much better from that album.
Yeah, and for Heaven and Earth, the chronologically last recorded Yes album with him, there's a bit of the game where early on I thought maybe it was Chris singing the part where it's like, I always knew through thick and thin, but then I
Which
saw
song?
like
The game?
the game, yeah, but then I saw like audience like or live footage of them playing the game, and it was John Davison singing that part. So I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
But I guess
interesting.
that goes to show that I could imagine Chris singing part of that. And also In a World of Our Own, very bluesy number there. So yeah, there are definitely lots of different options. I
Yeah,
could
here's another
even,
one from Kevin McGurvican watching To Be Over with Chris. Absolutely.
okay.
That
Yeah.
that's another beautiful song. Paul Wood says, "What's going on, guys?" Hey, Paul, hope you're well.
Yeah.
Those are
And
some good ones. So what would some sleepers be like that you think people just completely overlook or forget about? Some deep Sound Chaser is a tough one, but that's not a sleeper, I don't think. But there's probably some buried bones that aren't so top of mind when it comes to that question, I think.
um
So much so that I can't think of any.
which one? The where he could have sung lead on, or where his vocal
Harmony.
harmonies stand?
Yeah,
Okay.
harmonies where, oh yeah, those are just great harmonies.
Yeah. I guess the Open Your Eyes album would be an easy one to go
That's
to.
true.
And I
Yeah,
like the early version of the title track where it's called Wish I Knew, done by Chris Squire Experiment and later
right.
Conspiracies, very like prominent there.
The More You Know? No, The More You Live?
Oh
What
yeah,
song am I yeah,
The
that's a
More You
great one.
Live, Let Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about Tempest Fugit?
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's necessarily a deep cut anymore, but
I wouldn't say it's a
yeah,
deep
I
cut,
guess
but a deep cut in the sense of Chris's harmonies not being the
yeah, I
obvious
guess
thing someone would
yeah,
think
I
of.
guess people don't talk about the harmonies there as
Yeah.
much, so I can totally see that.
Does the
Actually,
harmonica count in the live version of In You and I?
yeah, I actually have a few comments from when I was sharing the graphic around, and people have some interesting thoughts on some of these things.
One more sleeper from Kevin. I'm running. That's true.
Oh
From
yeah,
Dick
yeah,
Generator. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a
and
good
his
one.
bass is great on that too.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Do, do, do,
yeah,
do, do. Yep. You want to read some
yeah.
comments back and forth?
Yeah, so Max Hunt says this is my absolute favorite Chris vocal, and he posted the YouTube link for Can You Imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Jeffrey Froling has a nice story about that song. I remember listening to the Magnification album on my way to a Yes concert about 10 months after Chris died, hearing his voice sing, Can you imagine what it's like? Seeing life from the other side brought me to tears. The subsequent show began with that tribute to Chris, with his bass on stage and Onward supporting the slideshow, and brought tears to everyone else too. Now,
Getting goosebumps.
yeah, and I know it's I said that, oh, this is a nice story, and there is a sadness to it, but it's nice in the sense that Chris, even when he's no longer on this planet, like still resonates with us, like it's the
Yeah,
power of music.
absolutely. I'll read Paul's. I hope I'm
Okay.
pronouncing your name correctly, Paul. Well, I know I got the Paul right. Is it Jing or Ging? I'm not sure. But thanks for writing. It says, and you know what? I'm gonna put on my other glasses.
Okay.
There's a lot of text here. There we go. I love vocals during the breakdown section in South Side of the Sky, leading the other voices. I do too. That's a great one as well. Then he goes on to say, I also love the duet vocal on Parallels, the way he sings, it's the beginning of a new love inside, by himself near the end. Yeah, that's right. When the vocals are kind of weaving. Yeah. The call and response vocals with John on It Can Happen, similarly with Trevor in the midsection of Machine Messiah. Friends Make Their Way. Yeah, that section's great. And also singing along with Benoit on the final verse of Fly From Here, We Can Fly. There are others, but those are just the ones at the top of my head. And then he says, also, Stephen, meaning you, also, Stephen, I understand that until they met Trevor and Jeff, Chris was considering taking over lead vocals. My personal view is if Chris had perhaps taken over the lead vocals, some of the older material live, this may have spared poor Trevor the ire from a certain section of the audience unhappy about him replacing John. If they'd shared the lead vocals a bit, even if just at the beginning, this might have diffused a lot of the hostility. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, I actually have a page with the set list from that first drama tour show. So looking at the classic selections on there, you got Yours Is No Disgrace. You got Clap, but Chris wouldn't necessarily have need to sung along to that, I don't think. Parallels, Starship Trooper, Roundabout. So not as many classic selections as I expected. Oh, you also got The Fish, but he already does the Shine Deliria Prematuris part. So yeah, so what do you think of that idea of like he could have sung lead on the classic tracks and maybe Trevor still sing lead on the drama ones?
That's I don't know. I wonder if they would have not called it Yes and not done those to some degree, and maybe just pulled out one or two that he could have done, like Roundabout or All Good People. You know, I don't know. You?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, like Trevor Horn doing the drama stuff, I think would have still been yeah, I don't know, because they still would have called themselves Yes either way, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm trying to imagine, because I can imagine him singing the drama songs either, like on lead. Even like later on, Fly From Here, you know, that album, I can imagine him singing at least parts of the suite. Like for whatever reason, it's like easy for me to just like pop into my head that he could do that.
Yeah, interesting. Go ahead and read the other comments, and then I'll go back to the comments that are in the stream.
Okay. Steve Hall says, having seen him and them on numerous occasions, the most striking thing was the independence of his bass playing with the counterpointing vocals and the ease and joy he brought that about. He and Alan were one of my favorite prog rhythm sections. Happy heavenly birthday to the Doctor. So yeah, referencing that iconic 9012 Live outfit he wore.
Yeah. Patrick.
And then Patrick Loftus, yeah, mentions Can You Imagine and Silently Falling as favorite Chris sung tracks of his.
And then Mike Jackson has a sleeper for sure, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, Mike Jackson mentions Talk. Yeah, that's one where I don't necessarily think of the, like, Chris first and foremost, because for that album, it feels like John and Trevor were the main collaborators or creatives, and everyone else contributed but was kind of taking a back seat compared to them, if that makes sense.
But the bridge on that song, State of Play,
yeah,
you know what part I mean?
Yeah.
Don't let the children
Oh
don't
yeah, for sure.
remember the words. Okay. Next we have Joel Smitches also says, where did it go? There it is. Last year at Daryl's house, we did a Squire medley that I still tear up listening to. We did Aliens, Hold Out Your Hand, and Can You Imagine? Chris was such a huge part of my musical upbringing. That's awesome,
Yeah.
Joel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked with Joe about that, and yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Um so I'm trying to remember oh, there's of course also the Squacket album, Life Within a Day. You got Chris and Steve Hackett singing on that, and they sound pretty good together. Um,
I forgot.
so
We just had
yeah.
Steve Hackett on like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I cannot remember if we asked him if any of that music appeared live. I think he said no.
Um, yeah, he might have answered. I get like both of our, because we've interviewed Steve Hackett twice now, and I kind of get like what we asked him on both of those
On
kind of
which,
mixed up with each other. Because
yeah,
like after we do each of these interviews, most of the time I don't listen back except for like to check the audio, because like we were there and it's like we experienced it, and it's
yeah.
yeah. So like I don't
But
know.
that opening track, "A Life Within a Day," on that album is freaking killer. There's some like
Yeah.
sound chaser stuff going on there with the bass. It is such a great song, and monster guitar fingerboard work by Hackett. That is just such a great, great song. I'd love to see this stuff performed live.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked a little bit about XYZ or XYZ. Can You See became Can You Imagine, and both had Chris on lead.
And I mentioned
And
to you before we went live how interesting I think it is that that got dug up so many years later for the
yeah,
Magnification album. Like I wonder how long that was bouncing around in Chris's head before either he brought it out for that or had brought it out for other albums that maybe it just wasn't a fit for, and somehow this just absolutely worked or something. It's just such an interesting morph that song took when you listen
yeah,
to XYZ and then listen to that with the orchestra and just the whole bit. It's quite
yeah.
interesting.
And that's not the. And there are other instances like that where the like that
From
was
Mind
from
Drive,
XYZ and then became the drum duet on Union Tour and then became
Mind Drive.
Mind Drive.
Yeah.
Um,
But I'd love to know the
and
Can You Imagine story. I'd love to know what the answers to that are. And I don't know if anyone knows.
yeah, and for I'm Running, maybe I've told you this before, but the do 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 like that actually came from the drama sessions originally.
Oh,
So he had that tucked into his pocket for
I
several
didn't know
years.
that.
So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the things that these musicians like they hang on to ideas, don't throw them away, and then they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And then it turns into something many years later. I really like that.
Yeah.
Um, and there's also Telephone Secrets. Chris sang on that,
Yep.
another XYZ song.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, and yeah, I mean, what else could we say? Like, we've talked about Fish Out of Water a ton, and we've talked about Swiss Choir, both excellent albums in his solo career. And yeah, like, there's more he could have done if he really wanted to, solo wise, but he was mostly dedicated to Yes. But yeah, like his choir upbringing really
Oh,
led to like the vocal harmonies and the singing, and it's
yeah.
really fascinating like focusing on those when you listen to some of his work.
I think Bill Bruford said it best over the years when he referred to first signing up with Yes, and he called their vocal harmonies like of the ire of like the Fifth Dimension, which was a vocal group, back in the 60s, that I grew up listening to because grandma used to listen to that. And little did I know that for my 50th birthday shortly after we first started Drum Talk TV, gosh, almost 12 years ago or whatever, that I'd interview Hal Blaine, who played on all that stuff. But I love that analogy that Bill made with the vocals, because it's a vocal band and it always has been,
Yeah, for sure.
even like you pointed out from the opening track of the first album, even.
Yeah. And we're gonna talk more in depth later in the month on the 21st, so that'll be fun as well.
Is that the 21st?
So
No, on the
yes,
the 21st. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So anything else you want to say about Chris as we close out?
Only that I find it interesting that out of all the Yes members that did solo albums, only him and Alan only did one. And I find it especially...
Well, he did two if you include Chris Squire.
Yeah, I guess so. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I think it's interesting that he didn't do more solo stuff that was non-holiday stuff. You know what I mean? And I think I heard him answer that question one time years ago, and it's just that everything else he came up with was such a great fit for Yes.
Yeah, well, Chris Squire experiment, which he did with Billy and others, like that was going to be a solo effort, but then it morphed into like a partnership between him and Billy that morphed into Conspiracy. So it's kind of funny, like reading some of the quotes that he'd say in the early 90s, where I think even on the Yes Years documentary, when he's talking about Fish Out of Water, he's saying, yeah, that was my first solo album. I'm gonna make another one in a year or so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have an interview on quarter-inch tape from, I've told you this, but from 1980, when Drama came out. And it's an interview with him and his first wife, actually. And I think he mentions that on that as well.
Yeah. And I see Joel Sim commented again saying Days of Wonder would have been a great Yes tune. I believe that's another Conspiracy song.
Anything off of Fish Out of Water that you could have heard Yes doing? One of the many lineups of Yes doing? And you got to consider with Bill playing drums and it sounding like that. So is there anything, let's narrow it down. Anything off that album that would fit into the Bruford era of Yes?
Well, I think they played Hold Out Your Hand at least a couple of times on the 76 tour, but in the Bruford era,
like, could that have been on Fragile?
Oh, okay. I get what you're asking now. Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe the like Hold Out Your Hand part. For some reason, the You By My Side track feels kind of ahead of its time to be on Fragile, but also Yes have often sounded like they're ahead of their time. So go figure.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other call outs from anybody else watching, whether you're watching on the live or the archive in the future? If you are, right now, we're doing this in your past, but you're still welcome to comment.
Yeah. And Joel adds Fish Out of Water was pretty much a Yes album for me. Hold Out Your Hand would have totally worked on Fragile. Yeah.
Cool. Although it's Moraz on keyboards.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be like, what would it have been like with Rick on keyboards? We've got like so many like different.
It might have been exactly the same if Squire wrote the part.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we don't know if he gave any latitude or said, "Here, play this." This is how it goes.
Yeah, or maybe he would have made like one of the. Maybe for the outro, it would have been like a longer thing, like do 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 do, like I don't know, get a bit more like crazy with it. I don't know,
Mini Moog or something.
Yeah. But yeah, happy heavenly birthday to Chris. And we'll be back. We are scheduled to go live again on Wednesday, the 6th at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern US, 8 p.m. UK time to talk with Derek Schulman. So that should be a fun conversation.
That's still so weird to me that so we started Drum Talk TV January of 2013. And all these years, I've always wanted to have John Weathers on, but couldn't find him. And then recently, we got approached from the Channel Giant Management Company, and we had John
Well, we
on.
reached out to PR, and that's how it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, that's right. We had John on last week, and now Derek this week, and it's like, what? Now all of a sudden we've got both of them, which is great.
Yeah.
And we're conniving something in the background that you'll all find out about real soon. That is extra. So, it's extra for some people, not for everybody.
Right.
Could be for everybody if everybody went in on it, but we'll see. You'll see what I mean later, folks.
Yeah. And with that, thanks everyone for tuning in, and go listen to some more Chris. It's never a wrong day to listen to Chris Squire, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And for the Yesshift fans, we simulcast this on Drum Talk TV for kind of obvious reasons. But for Yesshift fans or people wanting to become Yesshift fans, you can follow us at youtube.com/@Yesshift, on facebook.com/Yesshift, anchor.fm if you like audio only, at anchor.fm/Yesshift. And if you're a Yesshift fan and don't know about Drum Talk TV because you've been living under a rock or just unaware of it, facebook.com/drum. Well, it's at Drum Talk TV on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, and Twitter or X or whatever he's calling it this week. We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
We'd love to see you there. And thanks for following what we do. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.